Pull up, Lee. Pull up right now. The cockpit siren shrieked crimson as the horizon spun wildly out of control. Wind roared through the cracked windshield, tearing the oxygen mask straight off my face. Hydraulics are dead. I screamed into my headset. We're spinning. I slammed my palm onto the console, praying this was just another brutal simulator stress test. But my fingers hit cold, sticky liquid. Blood. I whipped my head to the left, expecting an instructor with a clipboard. Instead, Captain Harold, head of the Aero Grid Certification Board, was slumped against the side panel, blood streaming down his gashed forehead. This isn't a simulator, Lee. Harold choked out, clutching a severed cable harness. You're the only one holding this. My mind snapped. Panic took my lungs hostage, and my vision tunneled into total blackness. I froze as the jagged coastal cliffs rushed up to swallow us whole. 5 seconds to impact. Harold lunged across the console with a roar, his bloody hands slamming over mine to force the manual trim wheel back. The belly of the plane scraped the treetops before we skidded violently onto the emergency runway. We survived, but 2 hours later in a sterile briefing room, Harold slammed my file onto the steel table. Psychological freeze under extreme pressure, he declared coldly, his head wrapped in bandages. Your commercial license is revoked, effective immediately. Please, Captain, I begged, my chair clattering against the floor as I stood up. I've sacrificed 10 years of my life for this. You froze. Harold barked, slamming his fist down. If I hadn't grabbed that wheel, people will be dead. Go back for training, and then come back for another test. $450,000 for training? It was a sum so massive it felt like a sentence to life imprisonment on the ground. I walked out of the airfield facility with my heart torn out of my chest, carrying nothing but a crushed spirit, a mountain of mounting debt, and the unbearable shame of total failure. That night, a thick, suffocating sea fog rolled over the windy coastal highway, reducing visibility to less than 10 feet. I revved my vintage motorcycle as hard as the engine would allow, driving blindly along the edge of the dark ocean cliffs, desperately trying to outrun the humiliation burning inside my chest. Suddenly, the bike's engine sputtered violently. Metal ground against metal with a sickening, metallic screech, and the rear wheel locked up entirely. The motorcycle skidded wildly across the damp, slick pavement, throwing me hard onto the gravel shoulder before coming to a rest in the ditch. I lay there on the freezing dirt, covered in mud and road rash, staring up at the dense fog, and finally broke down completely. I slammed my bloodied fists into the mud over and over again, sobbing violently into the silence of the night. Why? Why me? I screamed into the foggy abyss. Why did you let me get so close just to take it all away? Hey, easy on the knuckles, pilot. A soft, steady voice cut through the sound of the crashing waves below. A pair of warm, yellow headlights broke through the thick mist as a battered old pickup truck pulled up to the shoulder. A young woman stepped out into the night, wearing an oversized, oil-stained canvas work jacket and carrying a heavy steel toolbox in her hand. Her name was Hana. Without asking a single question, she walked over to the ditch, knelt beside the smoking motorcycle, and shone her flashlight directly into the exposed mechanical housing. Your primary fuel line cracked from the vibration, and your main carburetor is completely flooded, she said softly, her voice completely calm despite the pitch-black highway. You're lucky the spark plug didn't ignite the spill, or you would have blown the whole crankcase to pieces. Just leave it, I muttered, wiping the dirt and tears from my face in deep humiliation, refusing to look her in the eye. It's garbage, just like my life. Leave it in the dirt. Hannah stopped wiping her grease-covered hands on her rag, turned around on her knees, and looked directly into my eyes with an intense, quiet strength that instantly silenced my spiraling thoughts. If you've ever felt like your entire world collapsed in a single second and you had to rebuild yourself from scratch, hit that like button and drop a "stay strong" in the comments right now. Nothing is garbage until you decide to stop fixing it, Hana said firmly, reaching in her steel box to pull out a heavy-duty socket wrench. As she worked under the dim, flickering amber lights of her truck, I found myself pouring my heart out to a complete stranger, confessing the terror of the cockpit experience not long ago. Hana didn't interrupt. She didn't offer cheap pity or empty words of comfort. Instead, when she finished tightening the last bolt, she handed me a stainless steel thermos filled with steaming hot coffee. "An engine doesn't care how many times it stalled in the past, Lee," she said, looking straight into my eyes. "It doesn't remember the misfires, and it doesn't hold a grudge against the road. It only cares if you prime the cylinder properly for the very next crank. Stop trying to fight the storm that already passed. Control what's in your hands right now, and let the wind do the rest." As she reached deep into the bed of her truck to retrieve a spare fuel filter, her heavy canvas jacket pulled back slightly. Underneath, pinned carefully to her denim shirt, was a polished silver aviation wings lapel, stamped with the unmistakable crest of the Aero Grid Certification Board. My breath caught in my throat. Before I could process what I was seeing or ask her how a roadside mechanic had earned an elite board pin, she clamped the new fuel hose tightly into place, kicked the motorcycle starter pedal, and the engine roared back to life with a deep, healthy thunder. "She's ready to ride," Hana said with a gentle smile, handing me my helmet. I reached for my leather wallet, desperate to pay her for her time and parts, but Hana firmly pushed my hand back down. "Keep your money," she said softly, her dark eyes reflecting the warm truck lights. "Pay me back when you get your wings back." For the next 8 grueling months, my life transformed into an absolute trial of human endurance. By day, I worked 12-hour shifts at the deepwater cargo docks, hauling rusted steel shipping containers in the freezing ocean wind until my palms cracked and bled, saving every single dollar I earned to pay for private flight simulator hours and therapy sessions. By night, I rode my motorcycle straight to Hannah's small, isolated roadside garage near the cliffs. She didn't just teach me how to rebuild high-performance engines. She systematically retrained my shattered mind. For the next 8 grueling months, my life transformed into an absolute trial of human endurance. By day, I worked 12-hour shifts at the deepwater cargo docks, hauling rusted steel shipping containers in the freezing ocean wind until my palms cracked and bled, saving every single dollar I earned to pay for private flight simulator hours and therapy sessions. By night, I rode my motorcycle straight to Hannah's small, isolated roadside garage near the cliffs. She didn't just teach me how to rebuild high-performance engines. She systematically retrained my shattered mind. Whenever we worked on pressurized air systems and my breathing grew shallow, whenever the phantom sound of cockpit sirens began to echo back in my ears and cold panic crept up my throat, Hannah would drop her tools, grab my wrists firmly in her warm hands, and force me to look directly into her eyes. "Breathe with me, Lee," she would command with absolute authority. "For seconds in through your nose. Hold for 4. For seconds out through your mouth. Count the beats. Feel the floor under your feet. You are grounded. You are in control." Just as I felt myself reaching the absolute limit of physical and mental exhaustion, working 20 hours a day on 2 hours of fitful sleep, my phone vibrated violently against the wooden workbench in Hannah's shop. It was an official encrypted document from the Aero Grid Certification Board. A sudden, emergency candidate slot had opened up for a final, high-stakes recertification check ride. The chief evaluator assigned to conduct the flight and determine if I was mentally fit to fly again, Captain Harold himself. My throat closed up instantly. The room spun, and a wave of pure, Unadulterated dread rushed through my veins like ice water. I began pacing frantically back and forth across the oil-stained concrete floor of the workshop, clutching my head in my hands. "I can't do this, Hana," I cried out, my voice cracking under the pressure. "Harold hates me. He thinks I'm broken. The second I step into that cockpit with him, the moment the alarms go off, my brain is going to lock up again. I'm going to fail." Hana stepped directly into my path, grabbed the lapels of my heavy leather jacket, and yanked me down until our faces were inches apart. "Listen to me right now, Lee," she shouted, her voice shaking with raw, fierce emotion, tears shining in her eyes. "You are not the same man who froze on that tarmac 8 months ago. You have bled for this. You have fought through the dark every single night. You know how to handle the machine, and you know how to handle your mind. Look at me. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. Breathe." The morning of the final check ride arrived, bringing with it a sky that looked like a bruised, black and purple menace. A massive, unpredicted coastal tempest was slamming into the airfield, pushing gale-force crosswinds of over 4 to 5 knots straight across the main runway. Rain slammed against the hangar glass like handfuls of gravel. "We can cancel this evaluation right now if you're too terrified to face the weather, Candidate Miller," Captain Harold said coldly as we climbed into the cramped cockpit of the dual-control acrobatic trainer aircraft. He adjusted his harness, his eyes fixed on me with relentless scrutiny. "There is no shame in admitting you don't belong in the sky." "No, Captain," I replied firmly, staring directly back into his eyes as I clicked my shoulder harness into place, feeling a deep, unshakable calm wash over my body. "We fly today." We roared off the rain-soaked tarmac and climbed straight into the violent heart of the tempest. At 3,000 feet, as we cleared a thick layer of black cloud cover, a massive downdraft wind shear struck the aircraft's left wing without warning. The plane plummeted over 600 feet in less than 2 seconds. The cabin shook violently. Master warning horns shrieked through the headsets. Crimson lights flashed across the glass instruments. The heavy control yoke slammed back and forth violently against my palms like a wild animal trying to break free. Sudden wind shear. Primary lift destroyed. Recover the dive immediately or we hit the ocean. Harold barked, his right hand hovering dangerously close to the master override switch, ready to fail me instantly and strip my dreams away forever. My heart rate spiked to a terrifying 200 beats per minute. The air inside my chest felt thin. Darkness began to creep back into the far edges of my vision, tempting me to surrender to the panic. "It's happening again," my inner voice screamed. "You're freezing. You're going to crash." Then, clear as a bell through the screaming storm winds, Hannah's voice echoed in my mind. "Control what's in your hands right now. Let the wind do the rest. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out." I expanded my lungs, taking a deep, deliberate breath of air. The terror dissolved into absolute, crystalline focus. I gripped the vibrating yoke with iron hands. Instead of remaining silent in my panic, I began calling out every single flight procedure out loud in a booming, confident voice, taking absolute psychological control of the cockpit. Acknowledging wind shear. Applying full manual rudder countertorque. Increasing engine thrust to maximum. Trimming elevator 12 degrees down to regain laminar airflow. I didn't fight the fury of the storm. I read its movements, anticipating the air pockets and adjusting my controls with microscopic, fluid precision. With the gale-force crosswinds howling at 50 knots, I brought the aircraft down through the blinding cloud layer, aligned the main landing gear perfectly with the centerline of the storm-swept runway, and executed a flawless, butter-smooth touchdown on the pavement threshold. The aircraft rolled to a stop at the end of the taxiway. Complete, ringing silence filled the cockpit, interrupted only by the steady ticking of the cooling jet engine and the sound of heavy rain hammering on the canopy glass. Captain Harold sat frozen in the right seat, staring at the instrument panel in utter, speechless shock. Slowly, deliberately, he unbuckled his seat harness, pulled out a gold fountain pen from his breast pocket, and signed his formal certification seal across the official logbook. Flawless recovery under maximum operational stress, Pilot Miller, Harold said quietly, turning to look at me with a rare, genuine smile of deep respect. Welcome back to the sky. If you believe that true love, discipline, and relentless perseverance can conquer any obstacle life throws at you, smash that subscribe button right now. 2 hours later, I didn't head to the A-Field Lounge to celebrate with the senior captains. I put on my brand new, deep blue commercial pilot uniform, pinned the shining golden wings firmly to my chest, and rode my motorcycle straight back down that foggy coastal highway. Hana was standing outside her workshop under the afternoon sun, wiping dark grease off her fingers with a rag. When she heard the familiar rumble of my engine and saw me step off the bike in my pristine pilot uniform, her jaw dropped. The rag slipped from her hand. I walked straight across the gravel yard toward her, took her grease-stained hands in mine, and dropped down on one knee right there on the dirt. Hana, when my life was broken into 1,000 pieces in the dark, you didn't just repair my motorcycle, I said, my voice trembling with deep, overwhelming emotion as I reached into my uniform pocket and pulled out a small velvet box containing a brilliant diamond ring. You taught me how to master my fear, and you gave me the courage to fly again. The sky means nothing to me if I don't have you to come home to. Will you walk through the rest of this life with me? Hana let out a joyful sob, threw her arms tightly around my neck, and kissed me deeply as the golden afternoon light broke through the ocean clouds. Yes, 1,000 times yes, she cried out, holding me close. From that unforgettable day forward, whenever I pilot a commercial airliner high above the clouds, carrying hundreds of lives safely through the sky, I look out my cockpit window at the winding coastal highway below. I know with absolute certainty that no matter how terrifying the storm ahead may be, true love and an unyielding spirit will always lead you home.